have forced a venue change as protests erupt over Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's luxury celebrations. So why is the billionaire wedding? So why is this the billionaire wedding Venice didn't want?
Well, Keir Starmer delivering his statement over the NATO summit in Parliament, but everyone's talking about what's going on behind the scenes, aren't they?
Yeah. Behind him, hundreds of Labour MPs, around 122, 123 perhaps of whom are in open revolt against the Prime Minister, wiping away his majority. I mean, he would lose this welfare vote by a huge margin if all of these MPs do what they say and follow through with this wrecking amendment.
We've been talking about the potential for regime change in Iran, but apparently some Labour MPs are plotting for regime change a little closer to home, meaning they want Keir Starmer out of the door.
I mean, it is extraordinary to see that it's not even been a year since the general election last July. And in the space of 11 months, the authority of this government seems to have vanished. He won a majority of 174 seats, and now he's struggling to win simple votes on basic cuts. He U-turned, of course, on the winter fuel allowance. He is now going to have to fight tooth and nail making concessions over necessary savings if he's going to want to spend a lot more on the military, which, of course, is what he was just telling Parliament he has committed to do.
Yeah, and then there's that awkward poll that's come out today, this big mega poll by YouGov that puts Labour as losing 233 of their current 412 seats. That would be catastrophic for the party, but it would actually be a hung parliament.
I mean, it would also be a hung parliament where Labour couldn't cobble together a majority, just doing the numbers.
With all the little left-wing parties, yes.
They couldn't add together the Greens and the Lib Dems and the Scottish Nationalists. I mean, it wouldn't really work. But then again, could you find a scenario where the Tories would work with the Reform Party and make Nigel Farage Prime Minister? I mean, possibly.
Apparently they wouldn't have a majority either, so it would be messy territory. Anyway, get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. Do you think the Labour MPs are plotting for regime change for Keir Starmer's head? But let's get the news with Lewis.
Tom, Emily, thank you very much. Good afternoon. It's just after 12 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. An alliance more lethal than ever. That's how the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, describes the NATO military group as world leaders agree to ramp up defence spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. The US President Donald Trump called it a big win for Europe as the summit in The Hague came to a close last night. But moments ago, Sir Keir Starmer reiterated those words in the Commons, highlighting the UK's commitment to rebuilding a nuclear deterrent.
It has kept this country safe for decades. But we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing. So we are renewing our existing at-sea capability, and we are going still further. I can tell the House today that we will procure at least 12 F-35A fast jets, and we will make them available to bear nuclear weapons if necessary. Mr. Speaker, this marks the return of the Royal Air Force to nuclear deterrence for the first time in 3 decades, the biggest strengthening of our deterrence posture in a generation, keeping our country safe while also supporting 20,000 jobs.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is preparing to water down Labour's flagship welfare reforms to avoid the first Commons defeat of his premiership. 123 Labour MPs have now backed a rebel amendment to block the bill, forcing Downing Street to consider a climb down. The plans include cutting disability benefits and halving universal credit support. Critics warn they could push 250,000 people into poverty. Angela Rayner says the vote will still go ahead on Tuesday. The Reform Party is on track to get the most seats if a general election took place this year. YouGov's first MRP survey since the general election suggests Nigel Farage's party would win the most seats, but not enough to form a majority government. Meanwhile, the Conservatives and Labour would fall below half of the vote share collectively. A manhunt has been launched for 3 prisoners who escaped jail in Buckinghamshire. Jason McDonough, Daniel Harty and Barney Casey absconded from HMP Spring Hill at 6 p.m. on Monday. The public is being warned not to approach the men. Major pornography sites, including Pornhub and RedTube, will introduce highly effective age checks from the 25th of July in the UK for the first time ever. New Ofcom rules designed to keep children from seeing harmful content online come into force from next month, with robust age checks being a cornerstone of the regulations. These checks will include credit card verification, open banking or facial age estimation. London Paddington Station is celebrating 200 years of the modern railway. The event is being marked by the official launch of a touring exhibition train that will travel around the country over the next 12 months, visiting 60 destinations across Great Britain, and will be free for the public to visit. And Denis Villeneuve will direct the next James Bond film. That's right. The Canadian film director and 4-time Academy Award nominee says the role is a massive responsibility and describes himself as a die-hard fan since childhood. His previous works include the Dune franchise and Blade Runner 2049. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. Finance next.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3748 and €1.1726. The price of gold is at £2,431.24 per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,731 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 10 minutes past midday and rebellion is in the air. Yes, Sir Keir Starmer is now reportedly preparing to water down his flagship welfare reform plans, all in a scramble to avoid the first major Commons defeat of his premiership.
Yes, so more than 120 Labour MPs, his own MPs, are backing a rebel amendment to this bill, and pressure is mounting inside Number 10 to rethink key disability benefit cuts and delay Tuesday's crunch vote.
But this is really important for the Prime Minister's authority as an executive, for this government's legitimacy and for the ability of Rachel Reeves to fund her spending plans. But what is actually going on the ground? Let's speak to our reporter Adam Cherry, because Adam, it's a testing time for the Prime Minister.
Testing is putting it mildly. It's quite extraordinary. I mean, on the 4th of July, which is next Friday, that's his first anniversary as Prime Minister. We're not even a year in yet, and already he's facing a potential defeat in the Commons with a majority of over 160. Now, you heard in the Commons today the Prime Minister saying that he will have these conversations, these ongoing conversations with the rebels, and the vote is being held on Tuesday. They are saying they're going to go ahead with it. So that means major concessions. What does that mean in the long term? Well, one, of course, his authority is incredibly damaged, and two, it means for the taxpayer, probably your taxes are going up. They can't even shave £5 billion off a bloated welfare bill without facing serious backbench revolt. So in future, you know, everything's up for grabs. These backbenchers who are not particularly worried about party discipline, because I guess they see that their own personal majorities are quite slim and their chances of promotion is equally slim. So they might as well fight for their seat rather than fight for the government. So going forward, this is going to be a continuing problem, I think. And the original sin of this is the U-turn on winter fuel. Once they did that, they proved that they had a gaping wound, they were open to U-turning, they were weak, and now that is being exploited in real time. We're seeing it before our very eyes over the next few days in Parliament. I'm about to head into number 9 Downing Street for a press briefing. Of course, we'll ask much more about this. What sort of concessions are they making? Are they worried about the future of their authority and so on? So all of that will come very shortly. But it's just unbelievable, as I said, that in less than a year, they're facing a revolt of this kind.
Absolutely. Well, Adam Cherry, thank you very much, and we'll speak to you once you're done with the number 10 spokesperson there, of course. Perhaps you'll get some more answers for us.
Well, let's get the thoughts now of the chief political commentator at The Independent, John Rentoul. Because, John, it's hard to remember a Prime Minister who, 11 months into the job, had less authority than the current Prime Minister.
It is quite surprising, as Adam said. Margaret Thatcher was extremely unpopular in her first year, but this is something else. I mean, this is a government that cannot get its legislation through, or at least will have to make some concessions over the weekend or on Monday to try and persuade the rebels to back off, which I think will happen. But that damages the Prime Minister's authority, and it leaves a hole in the public finances, as Adam said.
John, what's your hot take? Interested to know your hot take on why the Prime Minister is so deeply unpopular, pretty much across the board.
You mean with his own MPs or with the public?
Well,
I mean, it's because he inherited an extremely difficult situation. It's the simple answer. I mean, the public finances are in an absolutely terrible state. Rachel Reeves, got a lot of stick for saying it was the worst inheritance since the war. But I mean, I think, in terms of the state of the public finances, she wasn't actually wrong. And so any attempt to try and put that right is going to make herself extremely unpopular with Labour backbenchers who are obsessed with this word austerity. And the problem with...
But we haven't had austerity since the coalition era. I mean, the amount that the government spends has grown year after year after year. I mean, this is the most extraordinary thing, isn't it? I mean, yes, the public finances are tight, but that's only because the government has chosen to spend quite so much money on quite so many things.
But what is so extraordinary, and this is essentially a question of competence, is that the budget for disability benefits has been rising so fast and is forecast to continue to rise, and yet the Prime Minister cannot persuade his backbenchers to make it rise more slowly, because the problem is that they started from the position of wanting to save money, and that of course went down extremely badly with a lot of Labour MPs. Instead of wanting to be nice to people and wanting to get people back into work. The starting point was saving money, and I'm afraid the proposals, if they do involve taking away personal independence payments from people who would otherwise get them or who get them now, then there's just no way you can persuade.
And let's be frank, there are a lot of Labour MPs who think that money grows on trees, or appear to anyway. But what do you make of what Lord Blunkett, David Blunkett, has had to say about all this? He says if they lose this crunch vote on this bill, they'd have to go for a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister, would they?
Yes, they would. That's why they're not going to lose it, because they will either compromise or postpone the vote. The governments cannot afford to lose second reading. I mean, second reading it's not really second reading. It's the first vote on the principle of the bill, and it is actually wrong in principle, as far as as a sort of question of parliamentary procedure. It's wrong for Labour MPs to oppose this bill in principle, because their objection to it is to the detailed proposals in the bill. They ought to be waiting for amendments, but they are so cross that they are going to bring the whole house down.
And that's what this reasoned amendment means in parliamentary parlance. It completely collapses the entirety of the bill. But they've chosen to do this, clearly, because they're furious with the Prime Minister, not going through the usual channels. They're taking the nuclear option.
Well, absolutely, and it's led by Meg Hillier, who is a pragmatist, a mainstream Labour MP, normally completely loyal, a committee chair.
Ironically, the Public Accounts Committee chair. She's the one that's ironically trying to keep government. Oh, sorry, she now Treasury. She was the Public Accounts Committee chair. Which is incredibly ironic, given that her entire job was trying to make government spend less money, or at least spend it more efficiently.
But not this money.
And now she's trying to make them splurge an extra £13 billion on benefits.
Well, John, I think we're actually going to have to leave it there because we've got to move on. But, John, always an absolute pleasure to speak to you, get your take on these matters. It's a right mess, I think we can conclude from all of that. But, yes, how astonishing would it be if there were actually to be a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister less than a year into his premiership, although we are coming up to the anniversary very soon indeed, aren't we?
Absolutely, but it doesn't stop there for the Prime Minister. No, another blow for the Labour Party as a new YouGov mega poll. This is one of these seat-by-seat polls. Huge piece of work.
Go on, tell us what you call it.
It's called a multi-level progression and it's called a multi-level regression and post-stratification analysis poll.
Slips off the tongue.
But it shows that if a general election were to happen tomorrow, Labour would win less than half of the seats they won last year, with Reform being the largest party on 271. So is it crunch time for the PM?
271. They've currently got 5. Well, we're joined by GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster. I mean, this poll, it's mega.
It's catastrophic for Labour and for the Conservatives. And yes, of course, it's 4 years till the next general election. Lots of things can change. But look at Labour and Conservatives. Labour currently have got 411 seats. They would be down to 178. Conservatives, who thought they hit rock bottom in July last year, decimated again, down to just 46. And the big winner, yes, that man on the screen, Nigel Farage. They would get 271 seats. Looking at the map of the UK under this poll, England particularly is a sea of turquoise. Now, it wouldn't be enough to get him that outright majority. In fact, it wouldn't be enough even if Conservatives and Reform, many of whom absolutely hate each other at the moment because Nigel Farage has said he wants to destroy the Conservatives, even if they came to some arrangement, they would still be a few short of that magic number of 325 for an outright majority. So this is terrible news for Number 10. I was in the Hague with the NATO summit with the PM yesterday. I asked him how confident he was, A, of leading Labour into the next general election, and B, being around winning the next general election to put these defence pledges into action up to 10 years from now. He said he's very confident. Of course he would say that, but I think the very fact that I asked that question less than a year after they got this whopping majority is just a reflection of the mess that they are in, and the fact that, frankly, it's been easier to keep Donald Trump happy than to keep Labour's own MPs on side.
Yes, we're nearly finished 1 year out of the 10-year national renewal project, Tom.
Yes,
9 years to go, apparently. Catherine Forster, thank you very much indeed. Nice to see you safely back in London.
Absolutely, but it's time now for our great British giveaway. Your chance to win £54,321. That £1 is very important. Our biggest cash prize to date. All of that tax-free cash could be yours. Here's Hayley Sparks with all the details.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, there you go. That's how to enter. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. We've got lots more coming up on today's show, so do stick around. Should booze ads be banned? Well, a leaked draft of the NHS's 10-year plan suggests this could happen sooner rather than later. Is it necessary for public health, or are we sliding deeper into a nanny state?
Plus, Venetians force a venue change as protests erupt over Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's luxury celebrations, their nuptials. So why is this the billionaire wedding Venice didn't want?
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Is J.K. Rowling an extremist, radicalised TERF?
It's extraordinarily patronising to suggest that a woman who's created whole new magical worlds from her own imagination has to be radicalised by other people in order to form her own views. That in itself I find extremely patronising. And, you know, a man may think that women don't have our own rich inner life and form our own political views, but we do, as Nana's just demonstrated. But secondly, there's nothing radical about believing that men and women are material realities, and sometimes in law, in policy, in life, that matters. That's her position. It's a very common, in fact, it's a majority position.
James, what is a woman?
But that's Nana.
Well, I'm just wondering. Well, it's just a simple question, because no. I'm just asking, what is a woman then? Because do you believe that a man can become a woman and a woman can become a man?
Yes, because man and woman is gendered.
So what is a woman? So what is a woman?
There is male and there is female, which is sex. This is a problem that I think a lot of you have. I'm a feminist. I believe in women's rights. I believe in women's safety. But the problem here is we are focusing on an absolute minority of people who have no, you know, when you look at it in the round, who have no threat to women. You know, statistically,
you don't know that. You listen. In the way the threat to women.
Sorry, not in the way that men are. This is the whole problem. Is that you saying man dressing up as a woman?
Yes.
That's despicable, Nana.
Well, it's the truth.
That is not the reality.
What else?
Nana, do you have any trans friends?
I have plenty of.
Do you mix with trans people?
I have mixed with trans people. I mix with all people.
GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 26 minutes past midday. Now, the government has confirmed that it's considering partial restrictions on alcohol ads, including a possible pre-9 o'clock ban, aiming to align the rules with so-called junk food advertising limits.
So people with drinking problems, they'll just turn the TV off at a certain time?
Because people with drinking problems are famously never up past 9 in the evening.
Anyway, the move is part of a 10-year health plan for the NHS, which will be launched next week by the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting.
But experts warn it could deal a blow to an industry that's already struggling. So is this the latest sign of the expansion of the nanny state?
Well, we're going to have this debate. Joining us is the ambassador for the National Association for Children of Alcoholics, Josh Connolly, and also the digital and communications manager at the Adam Smith Institute, Seb Charlton. Fantastic stuff. Josh, I'll start with you. So you think this is a good idea, do you?
Yeah, I do. I think it's a good idea to introduce some restrictions around the ways that we advertise alcohol. Yeah. To your point that you made about problem drinkers still being up past 9 o'clock. I'm sure they'll be up before and after 9 o'clock, but most kids won't be. So I think that's what we're looking at here is people that drink can still have their adverts, but children should probably not be looking at glamorization of alcohol. I think that feels fair.
OK.
Let's throw that over to Seb Charlton from the Adam Smith Institute. Seb, what do you make of that? This is just about protecting children.
Have we lost Seb for a moment there?
We've got a
right, well, we'll come
picture.
back to Josh.
Let's come back straight to Josh Connolly and put that question to you, because as a child, I watched a fair bit of TV. I can remember all sorts of advertisements. I remember, I think it was I don't know if I'm allowed to actually say the specific adverts that I remember, but most were about cider. I mean, there was a wonderful Strongbow ad. Basically, what I'm saying is, watching adverts as a child did not make me want to overindulge in alcohol. I don't think it damaged my childhood. Did it damage your childhood?
I don't know, can't remember. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I don't think we should make it black and white. I think we should have a more nuanced conversation around it. When I was younger, there were also lots of adverts about cigarettes, right? And the glamorization. If adverts don't work at all and don't have any impact, then maybe we shouldn't have any adverts at all anywhere. We know that they have impact. And look, I'm not anti-alcohol, but by any stretch. And actually, I do think there's nuance to this. I think that we can't entirely blame advertising here. Actually, I think people that end up problem drinking, and it's normally a symptom of something deeper, and that's actually a social issue, right? So I think any government that wants to blame adverts entirely are probably running away from...
Yeah, I mean, Josh, you're from the National Association for Children of Alcoholics, which, of course, is a huge problem. Being the child of an alcoholic can really, ruin your childhood, I'm sure. That's the issue, though, a lot for children, isn't it? That they follow in the footsteps of their parents because they see the drinking, they see that happening at home, and then they are, unfortunately, according to statistics, far more likely to then become problem drinkers themselves, aren't they, Josh? So it's more about your home environment.
Yeah, it's about your home environment and adverts on the TV. And look, there's lots of things that impact this, and I'm not saying that getting rid of adverts is going to solve the issue, but I do think it's a very simple thing that we can do that will have some impact on the relationship that people go on to have with alcohol, yeah. OK,
let's throw that all over to Seb. Seb, we've done this with cigarettes. Why not alcohol?
Well, I think actually the guest made a very good point that there are much better ways to tackle alcoholism. But when we're talking about banning advertising, I really don't think that's going to make much difference. What it is going to do, though, is it's going to really damage the hospitality sector. I mean, small venues really rely on advertising to encourage people to go to the pub to have a drink in a social way, not in a kind of problem drinking way. And we've had a hospitality sector. It's had the largest amount of job losses of any other sector in the past 12 months. So I think this is just going to be another nail in the coffin for our nightlife industry, for people going to pubs. And that's not... Again, I think it's important to draw a distinction between a public health attitude to tackling alcoholism. That's, definitely we should be focusing on that. Whilst I think this is just going to target ordinary drinkers and people that just want to kind of relax in the evening at a pub. So I don't really understand how banning alcohol is going to do anything but, or banning alcohol advertising, sorry, is going to do anything but, yeah, we're not...
That'll be a whole other kettle of fish if we ban it outright.
Don't tempt them.
Don't tempt them. That's what they want. That's what they want. That is the final goal. That is the final goal. We're going to have to leave it there, actually, but thank you to you both, Seb Charlton from the Adam Smith Institute and Josh Connolly from the National Association for Children of Alcoholics. Some good points made on both sides, I think.
I think some of the approach that we've made towards this in the last 5 or so years have been really, really bad. I saw a study being spoken about a bit yesterday, actually, which found that alcohol consumption has fallen in recent years in the UK, but alcohol-related deaths have gone up. What does that suggest? To me, that suggests that people who are moderate drinkers are drinking less because of all the taxes that we place on it. But if you're a problem
and health
drinker...
awareness, maybe, yeah.
But if you're a problem drinker, you're not going to be so price sensitive.
Nope.
You're still going to want to get that drink.
And you'll just buy the cheapest you can find anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Let us know, is this the nanny state gone mad? Are we ruled by these bureaucrats who hate fun and just want to destroy hospitality? Let us know. But next, we're going to be speaking to the Minister for Rail, Lord Hendy. Why? Because Paddington Station is celebrating 200 years of the British Railway. Look how far we've come. Let's get the headlines with Lewis.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. Sir Keir Starmer is prepared to back down on his welfare cuts bill in an attempt to head off a rebellion by Labour MPs. Donald Trump claims credit for NATO's new defence spending deal. He says his push for higher contributions led to an extra $700 billion pledged across the alliance.
This is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
YouGov's new in-depth poll suggests Reform UK is on track to get the most seats if a general election took place this year. And in the last hour, some breaking news. 3 high-priority patients have been taken to hospital after a double-decker school bus left the road and ended up in a river in Hampshire. Those are your latest headlines for now. More from me at the top of the hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got some showers moving east through this morning, and there'll still be some showers around through the afternoon, but they will tend to ease, opening the way for plenty of sunny spells, but with a fresher westerly airflow. It's going to feel a bit fresh over the next couple of days before the heat builds again over the weekend and early next week. Now, the showers I mentioned, the bulk of them are out of the way by lunchtime, but still some dotted about across eastern parts of England, into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, interspersed by brighter spells, and indeed there will be plenty of sunshine across the Midlands, west of England as well as Wales. Temperatures responding well, still up to the mid-20s in places, but certainly a fresher feel compared with the humidity that we've had across the south, at least over the last couple of days. Now, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, we'll still see some heavy showers during the evening, but as I say, there will be some dry and brighter interludes, some decent sunshine there for the Western Isles. Northern Ireland, the showers tending to ease, but cloudier here compared with the rest of the UK. Plenty of sunshine as we go into the evening for the southern half of the country. England and Wales seeing long spells of bright weather as the sun goes down. And we're going to keep the clear skies across parts of eastern UK into the rest of the evening. But further west, cloud thickens, outbreaks of rain arrive, the breeze picks up as well as an Atlantic frontal system moves in. So with that cloud rolling in, it's not going to be a cool night. Temperatures in many places staying in the mid-teens, but it will be a damp start to the day across much of Scotland into northwest England, Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud here, a keen breeze as well, picking up strength through the day. But further south, further the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south of England, yeah, there'll be variable amounts of cloud here and there, but mostly dry, and it's going to start to feel a little warmer again, up to 27 or 28 Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Drivers on the A9 northbound at Navidale should exercise caution due to a broken down vehicle causing restrictions. Maintenance on the A47 southbound between Upper Boat and Nantgarv begins at 8 this evening, causing closures. Congestion is building on the A50 eastbound near Atoxeter, with delays expected to clear by 5:25. In Cambridgeshire, a collision has closed 2 lanes on the A14 westbound, with conditions improving soon after 2:15. And on the trains, there is major disruption between Havant and Portsmouth Harbour Fareham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past midday. Now, Britain is marking 200 years since the birth of the modern railway.
Wow, 200 years already?
It feels like it was yesterday.
It does, yeah. A revolution that began in the northeast of England and changed the way the world travels today. And to celebrate, a major exhibition is hitting the rails, touring 60 destinations across the country.
Well, let's get more now with the Minister for Rail, Lord Hendy. Lord Hendy, of course, this was a world first for Britain. We pioneered the railways. We built thousands of miles of tracks in short order in the Victorian era. What went wrong?
Well, what went right? The first public passenger train in the world was on the Stockton and Darlington Railway in September 1825, and it created a worldwide social and economic revolution, and that is still happening today. Connectivity drives economic growth, jobs and homes, and it's been doing it for 200 years, and the railway's still relevant, and it's still doing it.
Do you think we have enough railways in this country?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing for some years past now, and certainly true now, is that everybody wants more railways. They want more trains, they want greater connectivity. The pressure from the northern mayors is for better railway connectivity, and this government's determined to create it.
I mean, I'm sure the determination is there, but looking at recent history, it hasn't been as glorious as it was 200 years ago. I mean, we've been trying for the last 15 or so years to build a railway between Birmingham and London, and have been failing to do so. We've spent tens of millions of pounds trying to reopen old railway lines, which for some reason we now need to do environmental impact assessments before we reopen railways that were running in the 60s, were then closed down, and now we're trying to reopen. I mean, it's taken decades and decades and decades to build even back some of the infrastructure we had before. Why are we so much slower today than we were in centuries past?
So let's unpick this a bit. This government inherited a real mess with HS2, but we are determined to sort it out. And Mark Weil, the new chief executive, and now the new chair, Mike Brown, both of whom I know well, are determined to fix it. Reopening old railways isn't a bad thing to do, but the last government started a process which wasn't funded and actually had to be curtailed simply because of the economic position. But more widely, we are committing ourselves to a better railway. The creation of Great British Railways this year, bringing train operations back into public ownership, and we're determined to improve performance, drive revenue up and reduce costs to the taxpayer and make a better railway. I think we're starting to see signs of that, and the railway's still relevant.
Sorry, Lord Henry, I mean, people, what they want is cheaper tickets, don't they? I mean, some of these routes are extraordinary, you know, costing you more to travel to Manchester than it would to take a plane.
So the two answers to that, one of which is there still are some very cheap railway journeys if you book in advance, but the other is to say that the railway currently costs the taxpayer far too much, and we are, both of you and I ought to be really worried about the cost of the railway to the taxpayer. So we've got a load of things to do, but driving railway performance through creating Great British Railways and public ownership, driving revenue up and driving costs down should create the circumstances where the railway costs less for the taxpayer and could deliver better value for its customers.
There have been some examples of the railways that have been attempted to be built just being so very expensive. I mean, we're talking tens, if not hundreds of millions of pounds. And it's not this expensive in other countries. I mean, France is able to build railways for a fraction of the cost that we are. Why is it so expensive now to build these railways when we used to do a dime a dozen?
So I don't. The HS2 is expensive, and it's been too expensive, and that's because of the way that it was specified and the way it's currently being built. So we need to change that. But actually what you've got to remember in this country is that when you do build and upgrade railways, you're doing it through crowded communities, especially urban communities. A lot of HS2 is in tunnel. If you look at the TGV in France, much of it isn't in tunnel, it's through the French countryside. Those are differences. But you're right, the government is working hard and is trying harder to deliver better at a cost that can be afforded by taxpayers.
OK, well, Lord Hendy, thank you very much indeed, and enjoy the celebrations at Paddington Station there. Good to see you in front of a train. Good stuff. There's Lord Hendy, the Minister for Rail. I remember when I went to Sri Lanka for a trip, which was quite incredible back when I was a student.
Yeah.
And going on the old British trains. Because, of course, they're still there.
Wow.
They're still there, so they go so slowly. They go so slowly, steam engines. But you can experience what our trains were like. Because we built them all, of course.
You've just niggled a fact in the back of my mind.
Oh, here we go.
About the Russian railway.
Oh, yes.
A Russian railway station is called a voxel. That's the word in Russian, if I remember correctly, for a railway station. Because the chap that introduced rail to Russia had seen Vauxhall Station in London and basically copied it, and then that sort of became the name of any station that was built in Russia. And I think you see this all around the world, don't you? Where we introduced railways to around a third of the world, and the rest of them just sort of copied us. I mean, it is such a heritage that this country has, the technology that we brought to all nations. But it just
is it cultural appropriation?
I think appropriate away. I just think it's a little bit sad that something we used to be so blooming good at, we seem to have sort of lost our way with.
Well, Will says, this is what I remember of British rail: strikes, late strikes, cancelled strikes, expensive strikes, dirty, and more strikes, ... he says. Anyway, if you're in search of some holiday sun, perhaps a railway ride in France, where it's cheaper. Here's the forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello. Lots of hot and sunny weather around the Mediterranean at the moment. Temperatures rising again in Spain. Quite a brisk breeze blowing at times over the Canaries. Some fine sunny weather here, a bit breezy too along the Portuguese coast, but a lot of sunshine across much of Iberia, through Italy and across the Greek islands as well. It'll turn a little cooler across the eastern Med as we head into the weekend, but temperatures continuing to rise in Spain and Portugal on Saturday and Sunday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Plenty more to come on today's programme, including why are people so upset with Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez marrying in Venice? We'll speak to some locals.
Plus, is the Prime Minister now on borrowed time? We'll discuss whether he'll have to surrender or suffer total humiliation.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's coming up to 10 to 1, and the Prime Minister is on a sticky wicket, isn't he? But crucially, what happens if he has to water down his benefits reforms? Where's he going to find the money? Will the tax fall on you and me?
Well, shall we speak to Alistair Heath, fantastic columnist, editor of the Sunday Telegraph. Alistair, you've got a pretty depressing piece in the Telegraph today, I must say, but it seems like you're telling what's happening, really.
Yes, well, I'm sorry to depress people, but I think the situation's quite bad, right? I can't see the Prime Minister pushing through the full extent of his welfare reform. I say that idea is dead on arrival. He's just not going to get what he wanted. And that comes after another set of U-turns, right? You've had one U-turn, another U-turn, another U-turn, and they all have one thing in common. It's when the government was trying to save just a little bit of money, where the Labour MPs rebelled and vetoed the plan, which means that the deficit, the budget deficit, which is already far too high for comfort, is going to grow again, and that means more tax increases. And I predict that the budget in the autumn will be a kamikaze budget. The Chancellor will be ordered to increase taxes massively to try and placate the financial markets and to come up with even more goodies for Labour's favourite interest groups, and also possibly to spend a bit more money on defence. So I think the situation is very bad. We've got a government that is spending far too much. We're a country that's living beyond its means, and yet, as soon as the government wants to trim a few £billion out of an exploding welfare budget, you have a massive rebellion from Labour MPs who have become extremely left-wing, who are being fuelled by a group of left-wing activists who want this government to be really a socialist government, right? They do not want anything that smacks of austerity or restraint or what I would describe as common sense.
But isn't this extraordinary? Because you had a Chancellor in Rachel Reeves who, at the start of her chancellorship, was actually making some tough decisions, was trying to project herself, at least to global markets, as someone who was willing to slay the dragons, to say, you know what, we're going to get rid of the winter fuel allowance. You know what, we're going to make some really tough decisions, and I've set myself these fiscal rules. But of course she had to U-turn on that. Do you think that decision broke the dam on every other decision that is coming down the line, like these benefit changes or potentially restraint when it comes to further forms of welfare?
Yes, absolutely. The dam is not just broken, it is smashed. And there's just no going back from this. I think her credibility in particular is entirely destroyed, right? She's not an iron chancellor. She's surrendering all the time. She's massively put up taxes, right? And at least there was a package, right? She was presenting a package to the British public, which was, OK, I will put up taxes basically in defiance of what we promised in the manifesto, national insurance. But at the same time, I will save some money. I will make some difficult cuts to public spending, which goes against the Labour instinct. But guess what? We've kept all the tax increases. We've lost all the spending cuts. And, you know, at this stage in the economic cycle, the government's coffers should be full. We should not be inflicted with a massive budget deficit. And in fact, we have a massive deficit, which means taxes are going to go up and up and up.
And Alistair, you say that this is all going to fall on the middle classes. So the middle classes, Middle England as well, expected to cough up more and more of their hard-earned cash. For what?
Yes, well, exactly, for nothing. Because what we're seeing in Britain is a welfare state that's out of control. We are spending on welfare as if we were a very rich country. But we're no longer a very rich country. We're a middling country, right, that desperately needs more economic growth, that desperately needs to attract more investors, more big companies, more entrepreneurs. But what are we doing? We're chasing these people away. Millionaires are leaving, billionaires are leaving, tax receipts are fleeing the country. We need a completely different economic policy, and we're not getting it from this government, not one bit. So therefore, the middle classes are going to have to pay.
This feeds in, I think, to our previous conversation about the railways. You know, we were once the greatest builder in the world. We were once the greatest manufacturer in the world. And we think of ourselves as being a very rich country. But if you stand still for a decade...
Yes.
And other countries continue to grow, I mean, by the 2030s, it's expected that Poland, on a per-person basis, will be richer than Britain.
Yes, we're going the way of Argentina, right? It used to be one of the richest countries in the world, and now it's one of the poorest countries in the world. Societies can decline. Economic growth is not guaranteed. You can become relatively poorer. You don't always get richer. And we haven't learned that lesson. So who is going to pay for this? Well, the middle classes are going to pay for this. They're going to have to put up taxes on pensions, or maybe on savers, on cars. Fuel duty is bound to go up finally after all this time. You're going to have an assault on the people who have what's left of the money in this country.
And they're already feeling so squeezed and hard done by, and certainly not rich. Alistair Heath, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm terribly sorry, but thank you very much. We can read your column in The Telegraph. Starmer's gamble has failed. Now Reeves will crucify the middle classes.
Well, it's a cheery note to end this hour on, but don't go anywhere. There is so much more to come. We're expecting a live update from the Pentagon in Washington, D.C., or just over the side of the Potomac from Washington, D.C., in Arlington, Virginia, after this.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got some showers moving east through this morning, and there'll still be some showers around through the afternoon, but they will tend to ease, opening the way for plenty of sunny spells, but with a fresher westerly airflow. It's going to feel a bit fresh over the next couple of days before the heat builds again over the weekend and early next week. Now, the showers I mentioned, the bulk of them are out of the way by lunchtime, but still some dotted about across eastern parts of England, into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, interspersed by brighter spells, and indeed there will be plenty of sunshine across the Midlands, west of England as well as Wales. Temperatures responding well, still up to the mid-20s in places, but certainly a fresher feel compared with the humidity that we've had across the south, at least over the last couple of days. Now, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, we'll still see some heavy showers during the evening, but as I say, there will be some dry and brighter interludes, some decent sunshine there for the Western Isles. Northern Ireland, the showers tending to ease, but cloudier here compared with the rest of the UK. Plenty of sunshine as we go into the evening for the southern half of the country. England and Wales seeing long spells of bright weather as the sun goes down. And we're going to keep the clear skies across parts of eastern UK into the rest of the evening. But further west, cloud thickens, outbreaks of rain arrive, the breeze picks up as well as an Atlantic frontal system moves in. So with that cloud rolling in, it's not going to be a cool night. Temperatures in many places staying in the mid-teens, but it will be a damp start to the day across much of Scotland into northwest England, Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud here, a keen breeze as well, picking up strength through the day. But further south, further the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south of England, yeah, there'll be variable amounts of cloud here and there, but mostly dry, and it's going to start to feel a little warmer again, up to 27 or 28 Celsius.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
She left office 35 years ago, which seems incredible.
God, that makes me feel really old. I remember being at school when she was deposed.
Oh, that makes me feel really old, because I was way beyond school.
Well, I was 47 yesterday, so...
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. Carry on.
So there are 3 generations that have grown up that weren't alive when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister. And there are so many myths that have built up about her that... and part of the reason I wrote it was because my personal trainer, I broke my hip 2 years ago.
Yes.
So I had to get a personal trainer to the rehab. And he's 25, or was then. And when he found out what I did for a living, he said, well, Margaret Thatcher, I've heard of her, but who was she? What did she do? He didn't even know she'd been Prime Minister. I was slightly horrified by this. So this is really aimed at those generations. You can't tell every aspect of her life in a book that size, but it really is an introduction to her. And the first sentence says, if you've read Charles Moore's 3-volume biography of her, please stop here. This book is not for you.
No.
So
it's an
covers most of the
introduction to her.
things.
And by the way, maybe that revelation by your PT does ask questions about the national curriculum and history teaching. They should do a section, shouldn't they, on our first female Prime Minister, arguably. But what's the challenge then when you're writing somebody's life up? I mean, and what a life she led.
Well, I found out that it's much more difficult to write a short book than a long book, because you really do have to be concise. I was told I had 30,000 words. I said, well, that's a pamphlet, not a book. So I stretched it to 45,000. But normally a biography would be 120, 150,000 words. So it really was quite a challenge to condense it all. And what do you leave out? I mean, I wasn't going to do a chapter on Northern Ireland, but as I was writing it, I thought, no, you can't do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row. So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 26th of June. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood.
Well, Keir Starmer is scrambling to avoid a major Commons rebellion over his welfare cuts, with over 120 Labour MPs in open revolt now. Is this another sign of Labour in disarray?
Well, the Prime Minister tells the House of Commons that ongoing conversations are happening with those rebels in an attempt to stop that revolt ahead of the vote on the 1st of July.
And did the US really cripple Iran's nuclear sites? Despite bold claims, leak intel suggests that the strikes may only have delayed the programme by months. But what does the Pentagon say? Well, we'll go there live, where the Defence Secretary will hold a live briefing in just a few minutes' time.
And GB News can reveal that an overwhelming majority of Brits back kicking out serious foreign criminals, even if it means risking human rights breaches like torture. This has support across all major parties and their voters. Have voters finally had enough?
Meanwhile, SAS veterans are under fire as Labour faces fury over plans to scrap protections for Northern Ireland soldiers. Is this a betrayal of Britain's bravest?
And Prince William and Princess Catherine are under fire today from animal rights activists after they shared birthday snaps with their Cocker Spaniel and her pups. Should the royals be setting a different example during a so-called pet homelessness crisis? Should they be breeding pets or should they be saving them?
And Venetians are forcing a venue change after protests erupt over Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's luxury celebrations. So why is the billionaire wedding Venice didn't want? Well, that's the podium there in the Pentagon. Pete Hegseth yesterday, of course, he's the Defence Secretary in the United States. Trump was starting to call him the Secretary of State for War. And saying that they should potentially rename the Defence Department the War Department, which, of course, it used to be called. We all used to have a Secretary of State for War.
Why did we change it? Was it not woke enough?
Yes, it was.
Is it a bit too aggressive?
It was the post-Second World War wokeification.
We won't go back to war.
Of 1940s politics.
It's all about defence, not war. We don't seek war.
But
this is going to be very interesting, isn't it? Because, yes, this is the question. How much of Iran's capacity to create a nuclear bomb has been decimated? And that's what we don't know.
Here's the thing. The strange thing is that the President of the United States has been trying to say, look, it was one and done. We did an incredible bombing raid. We got rid of all of their capability. Let's stop talking about it. We don't even need to... And then you had some channels like CNN, like the New York Times saying, did it hit all of the capability? Did it miss? Did it hit? Some of the reports said it was not quite sure actually what had happened. Trump really wants to say that that was done. He doesn't want to go back and bomb anymore. But, I mean, surely it really does matter whether or not the nuclear capabilities of Iran have actually been taken out or not.
Well, absolutely. Well, apparently the leaked intelligence reports that CNN and all the other scum media, in Donald Trump's words, reported on said that it could have been a small amount of damage or it could have been a large amount of damage.
Well, that's Pete Hegseth. Let's listen in.
Wonderful.
Well, good morning, everybody. Just arrived last night back from NATO, 2 days apart from my battle buddy, so it's good to see him this morning. Good to see you, Mr. Chairman.
You too, sir.
Where there was a historic outcome. I want to start with that real quick. I think there's so much news, so many things happening that oftentimes big, momentous moments get missed. What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security that other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal. You see, we're here this morning because in hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and spin stories, this press corps and the press corps miss historic moments. You miss historic moments like 5% at NATO, which when you hear, I was in the closed-door briefing. I wish there could have been cameras in there. When you heard the prime ministers and presidents of other countries, to a man and to a woman, looking at President Trump and saying, this never could have happened, never would have happened. It seemed impossible 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 8 years ago. But here we are because of your leadership. If you ask them the question, I bet they'd say the same thing. But searching for scandals, you miss historic moments, like recruiting at the Pentagon. Historic levels in the Army, the Air Force, Navy. Yeah, maybe there'll be a little mention here or there, but because it was under President Trump's leadership, because Americans are responding to him as commander-in-chief, the press corps doesn't want to write about it. Or bring us to the topic of the moment, the highly successful strikes in Iran. Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history, and it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. There's been a lot of discussion about what happened and what didn't happen. Step back for a second. Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities. I want to read some of the assessments that have been provided, because whether it's fake news, CNN, MSNBC, or the New York Times, there's been fawning coverage of a preliminary assessment. I've had a chance to read it. Every outlet has breathlessly reported on a preliminary assessment from DIA. I'm looking at it right now. Again, it was preliminary, a day and a half after the actual strike, when it admits itself in writing that it requires weeks to accumulate the necessary data to make such an assessment. It's preliminary. It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment, a linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong. And yet, still, this report acknowledges it's likely severe damage. Again, this is preliminary, but leaked because someone had an agenda to try to muddy the waters and make it look like this historic strike wasn't successful. I'm going to get to the chairman in a moment because he's going to lay out the particulars for you based on his professional military experience. But here's what other folks are saying. The DIA that put that report out says that this is a preliminary low-confidence report and will continue to be refined as additional intelligence becomes available. How about the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission? The devastating U.S. strikes on Fordow destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility inoperable. Have any of these quotes made their way into the New York Times or the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN? Any of these quotes? How about this one? This is a new one from the UN, the United Nations. No friend of the United States, or certainly Israel often. Here's the head of the UN Atomic Energy Agency this morning, Rafael Grossi. U.S. and Israeli strikes caused enormous damage to Iran's nuclear sites. Don't take my word for it. How about the IDF's chief of staff? I can say here that the assessment is that we significantly damaged the nuclear program, setting it back by years. I repeat, years. The Iranian foreign minister, the spokesman, our nuclear installations have been badly damaged, that's for sure. I'm sure that's an understatement. John Radcliffe, the director of the CIA, putting out a statement just last night. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by recent targeted strikes. This includes new intelligence from a historically reliable, very different than preliminary assessment with low confidence. He's saying historically reliable and accurate source and method that several key Iranian nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over the course of years. CIA continues to collect additional reliably sourced information to keep appropriate decision makers fully informed. How about DNI Tulsi Gabbard yesterday? She writes, and I quote, "New intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed." Institute for Science and International Security President David Albright, overall, Israel and U.S. attacks have effectively destroyed Iran's centrifuge enrichment program. Time and time again, I can go down the list, those that understand, those that see, those that do proper assessments recognize that what the United States military did was historic. And again, before I pass it to the chairman, because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, You have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it. Spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours? Has MSNBC done that story? Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery? Or how hard it is to refuel midair? Giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that, because of the hatred of this press corps, are undermined because people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible B-2 pilots and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers and incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news. So we're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word. This was an historically successful attack, and we should celebrate it as Americans. And it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years, and no other presidents had the courage to actually do. So with that, I want to hand it over to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They've done technical analysis on this, not just on the strike, but also on our Patriot defenders, on Al Udeid. And Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning, and all of you. Thank you for being here. As a follow-up to my comments on Sunday's press conference, I wanted to give you a few updates this morning on something I'm honored to do as a chairman, and that's a chance to get to talk about some of our service members and the incredible things that they do on behalf of our nation. And I apologize ahead of time for the length and the detail. Today, I'm going to brief you on a couple things. First, I'm going to talk about our air defenders at Al Udeid in Qatar and their actions on Monday. Then I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the academics that went into the attack against Fordo, the massive ordnance penetrator weapon, and we're going to show a video that highlights the effects that weapon has. Of course, nobody was down inside the target, so we don't have video from the target. First, on Monday, as the president has stated, on Monday morning, we began to receive indications and warnings that Iran intended to attack U.S. bases in the region. That morning, building on the work that CENTCOM Commander Eric Kurilla had done, and on the orders of the president, at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar and around the region, we assumed a minimum force posture. Most folks had moved off the base to extend the security perimeter out away from what we assessed might be a target zone, except for a very few Army soldiers at Al Udeid. At that point, only 2 Patriot batteries remained on base, roughly 44 American soldiers responsible for defending the entire base, to include CENTCOM's forward headquarters in the Middle East, an entire air base, and all the U.S. forces there. The oldest soldier was a 28-year-old captain. The youngest was a 21-year-old private who'd been in the military for less than 2 years. So let's put ourselves out there for a second. Imagine you're that young first lieutenant, you're 25 or 26 years old, and you've been assigned as the tactical director inside the command and control element. You, at that age, are the sole person responsible to defend this base. Listening next to you is your early warning operator whose job is to notify you of imminent attack. There's 5 people inside a vehicle and 5 people outside of a vehicle around these, a total of, as I said, 44. By the way, you've sat in the Middle East for years, deployed over and over again, extended multiple times, always being prepared, but unsure of when that particular day will come that you must execute your mission and not fail at doing it. In this case, these Patriot crews were deployed from Korea and Japan as part of our U.S. forces there to ensure that we had the most capable missiles in the CENTCOM area of responsibility. As the day continues, you start to hear more and more chatter in the information space about a pending attack. And as the sun starts to set in the west, you get orders from your higher headquarters to make sure that your missile batteries are pointed to the north. There are just a few other teammates. It's hot, you're getting nervous, and you expect an attack. Outside of those Patriot vehicles, your hot crew, which is 1 NCO and 4 additional soldiers, turns a key and relinquishes control of those missiles to that young lieutenant inside the vehicle, and you wait. You know that you're going to have approximately 2 minutes, 120 seconds to either succeed or fail. And then at approximately 12:30 p.m. on Monday, that's 7:30 p.m. in Qatar, as the sun sets in the west, Iran attacks. As the targets were detected, round after round of Patriot missiles are ejected from their canisters by an initial launch charge. Then the main solid rocket motor ignites. You can feel this in your body if you've ever been around a Patriot taking a shot. And round after round goes out and guides against those missiles coming inbound. We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history. And we were joined in this engagement by the Qatari Patriot crews. I'm not going to tell you how many rounds were shot, but it was a bunch because of classified purposes. And we're aware that there's reports of something getting through. What we do know is there was a lot of metal flying around. Between attacking missiles being hit by Patriots, boosters from attacking missiles being hit by Patriots, the Patriots themselves flying around, and the debris from those Patriots hitting the ground, there was a lot of metal flying around. And yet our U.S. air defenders had only seconds to make complex decisions with strategic impact. These awesome humans, along with their Qatari brothers and sisters in arms, stood between a salvo of Iranian missiles and the safety of Al Udeid. They are the unsung heroes of the 21st century United States Army. And I know a lot of you have seen the videos online and the excitement as those Patriots departed their launchers and went up and guided. This really demonstrates the combat capability and capacity of our Army air defenders. Simply stated, they absolutely crushed it. If you'd flip this over, thanks. Let me next move to a walkthrough of the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator weapon and share a little bit about the planners who did this and their work on the weapon. First, let me set the stage for you. There's an organization in the U.S. called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordow, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU-57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of spending time with these two Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers who've given so much. One of them said, quote, "I can't even get my head around this. My heart is so filled with the pride of being a part of this team. I am so honored to be a part of this." To you both, thank you, and thank you to your families. Operation Midnight Hammer was the culmination of those 15 years of incredible work. The air crews, the tanker crews, the weapons crews that built the weapons, the load crews that loaded it. Before I run through this video today, I want to talk a little bit about weaponeering and what goes into an attack. Weaponeering is the science of evaluating a target. I mentioned all of those factors before that these two DTRA officers had thought about. Ultimately, weaponeering is determining the right weapon and fuse combination to achieve the desired effects and maximum destruction against a target. In the case of Fordow, the DTRA team understood with a high degree of confidence the elements of the target required to kill its functions, and the weapons were designed, planned, and delivered to ensure that they achieve the effects in the mission space. By the way, in the beginning of its development, we had so many PhDs working on the MOP program, doing modeling and simulation, that we were quietly and in a secret way the biggest users of supercomputer hours within the United States of America. So let me talk about the graphic a little bit. And the GBU-57, which all of you I know is a 30,000 pound weapon dropped only by the B-2. It's comprised of steel, explosive, and a fuse, programmed bespokely each weapon to achieve a particular effect inside the target. Each weapon had a unique desired impact angle, arrival, final heading, and a fuse setting. The fuse is effectively what tells the bomb when to function. A longer delay in a fuse, the deeper the weapon will penetrate and drive into the target. So on Fordow, in June of 2008, you can see these three holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with two additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these two ventilation shafts, as seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space. In the days preceding the attack against Fordow, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack. I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were. The planners had to account for this. They accounted for everything. The cap was forcibly removed by the first weapon, and the main shaft was uncovered. Weapons 2, 3, 4, 5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space. Weapon number 6 was designed on each side, so there were 6 on each side. Weapons number 6 was designed as a flex weapon to allow us to cover if one of the preceding jets or one of the preceding weapons did not work. The video I'm about to show you is a culmination of over 15 years of development and testing. As I said, hundreds of test shots on various models. This is one weapon. So if you take a view of this as 5 additionals, you'll get a sense of what this looks like. Hopefully you can see it and there's not too much reflection. Tom runs our videos out there. We'll run it at full speed so you can see it and then go back through it. Go ahead, Tom. Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space.
For those listening on the radio, we are seeing a demonstration of a bunker-busting
Unlike
bomb.
a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast, ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of the damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over. A point that I want to make here: the Joint Force does not do BDA. By design, we don't grade our own homework. The intelligence community does. But here's what we know following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly. 2, the weapons were released on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded. And we know this through other means, intelligence means that we have that were visibly, we were visibly able to see them. And we know that the trailing jets saw the first weapons function, and the pilots stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight." Let me now turn to the bomber crews themselves, give you a few details about them. The crews that attacked Fordo were from the active duty Air Force and the Missouri Air National Guard. The crews ranked from captain to colonel, and most were graduates of the Air Force Weapons School headquartered at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I will state for the record that there is no beach volleyball or football at the Air Force Weapons School. They were male and female aviators on this mission, and a crew member told me when I talked to them on video the other day that this felt like the Super Bowl, the thousands of scientists, airmen, and maintainers all coming together. One last story about people. When the crews went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home. Late on Saturday night, their families became aware of what was happening. And on Sunday, when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes followed by a formation of 3 and came up overhead Whiteman proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we test, we evaluate every single day. And when the call comes to deliver, we do so. I could not be more proud standing up here today of our joint force. I'm filled with gratitude that I get to tell their story. And as we stand here right now, our forces remain on a high state of readiness in the region, prepared to defend themselves. And one last thing, our adversaries around the world should know that there are other DTRA team members out there studying targets for the same amount of time, and will continue to do so. Thank you very much. I apologize for the length. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just thank you, by the way, for that extensive work, the lay down. I mean, even, do you have that laser pointer? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, squaring me away as always. I mean, even in just the public reporting, if you see the post-strike shaft of the 3 holes, the vast majority, and fairly so, the vast majority of speculation has been, those are the 3 strike points. When in actuality, what you realize is these are the vents, these are the caps, the first munition took the cap off, and the other 5 went down the center hole, which if you're planning the target, you would want it to be the direct one going to the bottom. These are the types of things that go into the planning for a strike that the Pentagon would not expect the press corps or the American people to initially understand. So laying this information out is helpful. But it's also why we ask for a beat, for a moment, for a day or 2, the opportunity to tell that story. Because as the chairman said, these men and women that did this mission, they just want to do their job. They're not expecting their story to be told. They're not expecting the glory. They are grateful for the flags and the hugs of family. That's why they do the job. But they also know they were a part of something historic. We know how historic it was. The chairman does. I know. Our staffs know. And so that's why we are, and the president of the United States knows. And that's why it's almost personal when we see the way in which leaks are used to try to disparage the outcome or muddy the waters about the impact of what happened without being responsible with information and allowing the professionals to assess and provide that information just like the chairman did. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that information. Sure. And we welcome a few additional questions. Yes, sir.
General, on Sunday you said final battle damage will take some time. And you also said, I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not still be there at the nuclear facility. So that was just over 3 days ago. So what has changed? Would you use the term obliterated as well?
Sure, like I said, we don't do BDA. I'll refer that to the intelligence community. And
you're talking with them. I mean, what changed in the past 3 days that make you so, you know?
Sir, I think I said.
I mean, I think I explained what changed. There was a great deal of irresponsible reporting based on leaks, preliminary information in low confidence. Again, when someone leaks something, they do it with an agenda. And when you leak a portion of an intelligence assessment, but just a little portion that makes it seem like maybe the strike wasn't effective, then you start a news cycle, whether it's the Washington Post or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, you start a news cycle that starts to call into question the efficacy. No, that's why. So you bring the chairman here, who's not involved in politics. He didn't do politics. That's my lane to understand and translate and talk about those types of things. So I can use the word obliterated. He could use defeat, destroyed, assess, all of those things. But ultimately, we're here to clarify what these weapons are capable of, which anyone with, 2 2 eyes, some ears, and a brain can recognize that kind of firepower with that specificity at that location and others is going to have a devastating effect. So we all recognize there will be days and weeks ahead. That's why yesterday I said, if you want to know what's going on at Fordo, you better go there and get a big shovel. Because no one's under there right now. No one's under there able to assess, and everyone's using reflections of what they see. And that's why the Israelis, the Iranians, the IAEA, the UN, to a man and to a woman who recognize the capability of this weapon system are acknowledging how destructive it's been. So that's what's changed.
Just 3 or 4 days later.
See, this is a point. This is how difficult it is to actually manage. You just watched a video of what this weapon is capable of. That's where we find our confidence, is in the skill of men and women and the capability of the systems they employed and the recognition so far in the reflections that it was a highly successful mission.
Sir, I think you could, I'd say go out. The IC should be able to help you answer that question. We look at a variety, as the Secretary has alluded to, we look at a variety of things. I don't do that. They do. All different sources of intel, which I'd refer you to them to get clarity on the end state.
So again, I go back to the IC, whether it's Director Radcliffe or ODNI Gabbard. I read the statements at the beginning. They're the ones aggregating the intelligence, and they're saying nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over a number of years. Facilities were destroyed. What do we got right here?
Sir, you cited a body of credible intelligence to suggest the damage at Fordo and other places. What is that referring to, and when can we see it?
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine.
What is that?
You can imagine the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know, that the press isn't going to know, and he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible. They've given credible intelligence. They or those processes have given credible intelligence in the past, and that's what he's basing it on.
Don't you think we need to see that?
Do you have a top secret clearance, sir?
Eventually, the American public wants to see it.
Yes. Yeah, you.
I wanted to ask briefly just.
No, not you. Checkered shirt.
Oh, so Mike Glenn with the Washington Times.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. Anybody who's ever read a Battalion S2 report after a fight knows that it's usually, the initial report is usually wrong, sometimes grossly so. Has what happened in this incident caused you all to sort of rethink the intelligence process or the dissemination, or do you think it's just a matter, I mean, if the process itself doesn't require any more adjustment?
Well, I can tell you what the chairman told me in the Situation Room and reminded us all, which is alongside what you just said, sir, is that the first reports are almost always wrong. They're almost always incomplete, right? Anything, whether it's a squad level operation or a strategic level operation, the initial reflections you get are coming at you at a high rate of speed from a lot of different sources. So your job is to step back and assess them. And that's why we're urging caution about premising entire stories on biased leaks to biased publications trying to make something look bad. How about we take a beat, recognize first the success of our warriors, hold them up, tell their stories, celebrate that, wave an American flag, be proud of what we accomplished. And in the meantime, I can assure you, the chairman and his staff, the intelligence community, our staff and others are doing all the assessments necessary to make sure that mission was indeed successful. Yes, right there.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Iran has recognized that their nuclear program was indeed severely damaged, but they also said that the U.S. strikes only strengthened their ability and their determination to complete their nuclear program. How do you respond to that, sir? Is that a provocation from Iran?
Well, I would say Iran's going to have to say a lot of things right now in order to bolster their image, especially internally. You know, in the media, there's a lot of things they'll say for domestic consumption. But we're watching very closely what they do. Again, that's the intel community. Our job as the chairman, the chairman laid it out so beautifully. Our job is to be prepared. And how proud are you? How proud am I I didn't know the full story of those men and women 15 years ago who've been pointing at that target. That makes me proud to be an American. That's an awesome story. I hope we can tell more aspects of that in an unclassified way in the future. That's a great thing to know. Our job is to be prepared when the commander-in-chief calls based on those assessments. So, of course, our IC, the Intelligence Committee, will keep watching what Iran does and pay attention to that. But the president has created the contours, the opportunity for a deal, for peace, in something that the world said was intractable, that wasn't possible. And we got that peace, that ceasefire, that option, because of strength, because of his willingness to use American military might that no one else on the planet can do, with the kind of planners and operators that the chairman just laid out. Yes, sir. Right there. Yep.
Me, sir? Just a quick question. There's public imagery available saying that highly enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the strikes. Is that accurate? Have you seen that? And Mr. Chairman, a question for you. Have you been pressured to change your assessment or give a more rosy intelligence assessment to us by any political factors, whether it's the president or the secretary? And if you were, would you do that?
Yeah, well, that one's easy. No. No, I have not, and no, I would not. My job as the chairman is to offer a range of options to the president and the National Command Authority to deliver the risks associated with each of those, and then take the orders of the National Command Authority and go execute them. I've never been pressured by the president or the secretary to do anything other than tell them exactly what I'm thinking, and that's exactly what I've done.
And the highly enriched uranium?
There's nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
That's not the question, though. It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally what the president says. I'm familiar.
Report about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night. And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that. So we're looking at all aspects of intelligence and making sure we have a sense of what was where.
Why not acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission? The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does, right? Of course, the chairman mentioned a female bomber pilot. That's fantastic. She's fantastic. She's a hero. I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things. But when you spin it as, because I say our boys and bombers as a common phrase, I'll keep saying things like that, whether they're men or women. I'm very proud of that female pilot, just like I'm very proud of those male pilots. And I don't care if it's a male or a female in that cockpit, and the American people don't care. But it's the obsession with race and gender in this department that's changed priorities. We don't do that anymore. We don't play your little games. Yes,
so
right there.
For certain that the uranium was removed from the facility before the B-2 struck.
So I'm not aware of any intelligence that I've reviewed that says things were not where they were supposed to be, moved or otherwise. Yes.
Kelly Meyer with News Nation, and just off the top, want to say we're grateful for the service of these pilots and everybody that serves. I wanted to ask you, the CIA statement said, when possible, they will provide updates and information to the public for transparency, and I believe that's what we're looking for here. Do you commit to share the Defense Intelligence Agency report when it is ready, so the American people can understand more about the intelligence assessment?
Well, actually, the report that was discussed, this preliminary report, was what's called a restrike report. So it comes to us to give us an assessment whether a target would need to be restruck, right? That's the reason why. So it's based on internal feedback loop that we're supposed to have access to. Unfortunately, someone took advantage of that. But whatever is supposed to be made public will be, but whatever has to stay sensitive.
Sir, can I just jump in? You know, one of the things that I'm trying to do through this journey that we're on together, of course, transparency, but also the requirement to really protect these capabilities. I guess the time's up. So there's a balance in there, right? We do need to preserve options should the nation and the joint force be tasked to go do something again. So I'm confident we'll find the middle ground, but there are some things that if asked, I'd want to not release related to.
So we're going to leave it right there. I want to thank the heroism of our men and women in the military. What they accomplished is truly historic, setting back the Iranian nuclear program untold number of years. It was a devastating attack. We appreciate you covering it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Well, we've been listening to a press conference live from the Pentagon in the United States with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dan Kane, and Pete Hegseth, the Defence Secretary, explaining how, in their view, the bunker-busting bombing mission of those Iranian nuclear facilities was an unparalleled success.
Yes, and he's absolutely furious, wasn't he, the Defence Secretary there, Pete Hegseth, about what he said was a low-confidence leak of intelligence, and that the media should have known better, essentially, and that some of the media, some of the press wanted the strikes to fail or hoped the strikes would fail just because they hate Trump so much. That was the allegation.
Well, we were treated to videos and graphs and explanations and laser pointers to show that actually,
thoroughly enjoyed.
When it came to these bunker-busting bombs, it's not necessarily the size of the crater that matters in terms of the damage that's done, because they're so precise and they're about burrowing down into those deep nuclear facilities. Actually, a successful mission might not have provided much crater evidence at all.
Very interesting indeed. Shall we speak to GBNews political correspondent Catherine Forster, who, of course, was at the NATO summit. Catherine, very interesting press conference, hearing from both the Defence Secretary there and the military chief. What did we hear?
Yes, I thought that was quite extraordinary. They're obviously very stung and angry about the reports that leaked just within a day or two of those attacks on Saturday night, that perhaps this might not have gone as well as planned. It was a leak from the Defence Intelligence Agency which suggested that perhaps Iran's nuclear program had only been set back by a number of months. We've also heard that perhaps a lot of the enriched uranium had already been moved off that site at Fordo. So President Trump, speaking at NATO in The Hague yesterday, was having absolutely none of it. And Hegseth saying today that Iran's nuclear program has been obliterated. So the CIA director and Tulsi Gabbard, she's the director of national security, have said Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed. President Trump yesterday in the press conference said, well, I don't really want to make a comparison with Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and then did do exactly that, because he said that what those had done were essentially the same thing. They had ended the war, ending World War II, of course, in the Far East. Well, let's see if the war between Israel and Iran is over, the 12-day war, as he's dubbed it. The ceasefire is holding at the moment. We don't ultimately know. But such an extraordinary attack, I thought, on the media. We've heard it again and again from Trump and his team at the White House, talking about fake news, talking about certain media outlets that they feel are out to get them, having a pop at somebody talking about, you mentioned men and not women, a sort of war on woke. Hegseth saying, you know, we're not having any of this dividing of people. So they clearly want the narrative to be this was a triumph, a historic triumph. And look, Donald Trump, it's only 2 days ago he was using the F word. He was furious with Israel. He was furious with Iran. Now that has all changed. The ceasefire appears to be holding. He was, for many years, very fed up with NATO. We didn't know if he was in or out. We didn't know if he supported Article 5. All the cozying up to Trump at NATO has worked beautifully. Donald Trump effusive yesterday, talking about how he was moved by leaders and how much they love their country and they want to defend them, saying he'd rocked up basically to The Hague because he had to go, but he left feeling very, very different, and really also leaning in to that extraordinary who's the daddy conversation, which came out because Donald Trump was talking about Israel and Iran, saying, you know, sometimes you've got kids, you have to let them fight it out in the playground. He's used similar language in the past with Russia and Ukraine, and then the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte saying, you know, and then sometimes daddy has to come along and discipline them. The White House then put out the most incredible minute-long video of daddy's home with all the highlights of Trump at NATO. So they couldn't be more delighted with that reception, and they will be hoping now that Iran and Israel, that things will be calm.
Trump's absolutely lapping it up, isn't he? Well, Catherine Forster, thank you indeed for that summary and for being there at the NATO summit for us too. Absolutely extraordinary.
You can tell he was a former Fox News host, can't you?
Pete Hegseth.
Yes, yes. Very charismatic, and of course the attacks on some of the press and the fake news.
Well, now we're going to jump to Venice because Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, well, he's having a multi-million-pound wedding there, and it's kicked off, but not without issues.
Well, yes, so we're going to head to Venice now, speak to local business owner Ed Mankera. Thank you very much for joining us. So, how much of an issue is this for locals? Do you support it or do you hate it?
Hi, thank you so much. To be honest, I feel a bit mixed. I mean, I don't really like Bezos because he kind of turned up to Trump's inauguration, so I kind of tend to disagree with him. But I don't think he's ideological, to be fair to him. It was more about access than it was about politics. Sorry, I'm holding my phone with my hand, so it might be shaking slightly.
That's okay.
I mean, I think views are mixed, really. I think Venice is such a beautiful, magical, enchanting place. And there is always the tension between the heart of the economy, which is tourism, and the tourists. The fact that...
Ed, what do you make of the protests? Because some people have put an effigy of Jeff Bezos there out into the waterways. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm a bit mixed. I mean, I can see where they're coming from because it is a very lavish... Venice is really expensive, but I don't think he will notice how expensive it is, really, to be honest, Bezos. But it is expensive for the people that live here, so I see their point of view. And at the same time, it's a bit of a double-edged sword because we need tourism. I mean, that's the reality. There is that tension between the two of them.
Does your business rely on tourism, Ed? Does your business rely on tourism?
Probably about 30%.
Okay.
Yeah. So not as much, but yeah, about 30%.
All right, well, Ed Mankera, thank you so much for joining us. It looks like an absolutely stunningly beautiful day, so I'm sure they'll enjoy the wedding, even if some of the locals
I'm sure
don't.
They will.
Ed Mankera, thank you so much.
And even if they've had to shut down half the town to have it. But this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up in the show, including the Prince and Princess of Wales under fire from animal rights activists. Find out why after this.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight. Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius. Typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west and outbreaks of persistent rain over western hills. I think drier towards the east and northeast, but largely cloudy. Northern Ireland, likewise, a lot of cloud. Northwest England seeing the damp weather set in firmly during the morning. North Wales similar, but further south across Wales, brighter skies and mostly dry. 1 or 2 spots of rain possible for the southwest of England, but really it's a north-south split by the afternoon, with sunny spells breaking through across southern parts of the UK, albeit with 1 or 2 light showers here and there. Variable amounts of cloud, but thicker cloud and increasingly heavy rain pushing into northwestern parts of the UK, particularly for higher parts of western Scotland. Temperatures here held back as a result, but a warm day in the south, with temperatures reaching the mid or even high 20s in places. Then on Friday night, it's a warm night for many of us, with a lot of cloud cover, continuing to rain in western Scotland. High pressure then builds in from the south during the weekend, bringing increasingly hot air to the south while it stays cooler further north.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
£54,321 in totally tax-free cash could make your year the best yet. How would you react if you got that winning call?
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. Oh my God. Thank you.
You weren't expecting to get that call today, were you?
No, I wasn't.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here.
I'm Michelle Duke, Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
To all of you who voted for GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Hey, thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
Well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 26th of June. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver.
Now, Keir Starmer scrambles to avoid a major Commons rebellion over welfare cuts. With over 120 Labour MPs in open revolt, is this another sign of the government in disarray?
Yes, the Prime Minister says he's having ongoing conversations with those rebels in the Commons. Today is ahead of that crunch vote on the 1st of July.
Plus, a bombshell new mega poll puts Reform on course to be the biggest party if a general election were held today. Could Nigel Farage become the Prime Minister?
Elsewhere, the Prince and Princess of Wales are under fire from animal rights activists after sharing birthday snaps with their Cocker Spaniel and her pups.
How dare they?
But should the royals be setting an example during a so-called pet homelessness crisis?
And yes, the Venetians are up in arms. They've forced a venue change as protests erupt over Jeff Bezos's and Lauren Sanchez's luxury celebrations. So why is this the billionaire wedding Venice did not want?
Well, frantic negotiations are taking place as we speak. Yesterday, the government committed to holding this crunch vote on Tuesday, meaning they've only got a matter of days to win round what is over 120 Labour rebels, wiping out entirely their majority.
And who's going to be doing the ringing? Who's going to be doing the ringing around? Because yesterday we heard from the political editor at the I newspaper, wasn't it, Kitty Donaldson, who said that Rachel Reeves has been trying to do the rounds, and the backbenchers aren't too keen to speak to her.
Might have been counterproductive.
Is Keir Starmer picking up the phone, the whip picking up the phone, our colleagues picking up the phone, trying their darndest to get these backbench MPs to come in line?
But also, I mean, is it possible? So many of them have now publicly put their names to this wrecking amendment that walking back from that, it's not so easy. I mean, saying something behind the scenes, OK, you can do some horse trading, you can walk back. But because these names are public, they're going to have to get some concessions on this. And this is the problem here. The government's trying to save £5 billion. But if they start to make concessions, i.e. they try and, well, they'll have to spend more, won't they?
Yeah.
So they'll save less, then where's the money coming from?
Yeah, I mean, as you've pointed out, this is a sliver, a tiny slither of the benefits bill, the overall welfare bill in this country. And if they can't slither that bit off, then they're in trouble as a government. Keir Starmer's authority very much in trouble. Is this a beginning of the end? I don't know. Let us know. gbnews.com/your say. Some are calling for regime change, aren't they, Tom?
That's the word. Well, on the front page of the Sunday Times, really. Oh, not Sunday, no, of the Thursday.
The Thursday edition.
Not
Sunday yet.
That's the day of the week it is. Gosh, I'm getting ahead of myself. But you know who is not getting ahead of himself, who's completely up to date? It's Lewis Mackenzie with the latest headlines.
Very nice.
Thank you, Tom and Emily. Good afternoon. It's just after 2 o'clock. Here are your latest GB News headlines. More lethal than ever. That's the words of the Prime Minister as he describes the NATO military alliance, as world leaders agree to ramp up defence spending to 5% of GDP by 2035. Earlier today, Sir Keir Starmer reiterated those words in the Commons, highlighting the UK's commitment to rebuilding a nuclear deterrent.
It has kept this country safe for decades. But we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear threat is growing. So we are renewing our existing at-sea capability, and we are going still further. I can tell the House today that we will procure at least 12 F-35A fast jets, and we will make them available to bear nuclear weapons if necessary. Mr. Speaker, this marks the return of the Royal Air Force to nuclear deterrence for the first time in 3 decades, the biggest strengthening of our deterrence posture in a generation, keeping our country safe while also supporting 20,000 jobs.
Donald Trump said NATO's decision to increase defence spending to 5% of GDP was a big win for Western civilization. Just moments ago, the President's Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth hailed the spending commitment as a great success for the President.
What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security that other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a
Sir Keir Starmer is preparing to water down Labour's flagship welfare reforms to avoid the first Commons defeat of his premiership. 123 Labour MPs have now backed a rebel amendment to block the bill, forcing Downing Street to consider a climb down. The plans include cutting disability benefits and halving universal credit support. Critics warn they could push 250,000 people into poverty. 3 high-priority patients have been taken to hospital after a double-decker bus carrying sixth form students left the road and ended up in a river in Hampshire. The bus was carrying students from Barton Peveril Sixth Form College, leaving 3 people taken to hospital and 14 others treated at the scene. Hampshire Constabulary have said that everyone on the bus had been accounted for following the accident. Major pornography sites, including Pornhub and RedTube, will introduce highly effective age checks from the 25th of July in the UK for the first time ever. New Ofcom rules designed to keep children from seeing harmful content online comes into force next month, with robust age checks and being the cornerstone of the regulations. These checks will include credit card verification, open banking, or facial age estimation. And finally, the new director for the next James Bond film has been revealed. The Canadian film director and 4-time Academy Award nominee Denis Villeneuve says the role is a massive responsibility and describes himself as a die-hard fan since childhood. His previous works include the Dune franchise and Blade Runner 2049. Well, those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Lewis Mackenzie. Finance next.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3704 and 1.1716 euros. The price of gold is at £2,427 and 85 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 8,747 points.
Done. My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2. Now the Prime Minister is preparing to water down flagship welfare reform plans, given this enormous rebellion he's facing in the Commons. Could he face an actual defeat, despite his majority of 176 MPs? That would be a staggering fall from grace.
Yeah, well, there are some very upset MPs, aren't there, sitting behind him? More than 120 of them backing a rebel amendment. So the pressure is very much mounting inside Number 10 to rethink key disability benefit cuts and delay Tuesday's crunch vote. And it's been a busy week anyway for the Prime Minister. How is he going to balance all of this?
Well, let's speak to our reporter, Adam Cherry, on this, because, Adam, it's hard to overstate how much of a crisis this is for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely. This is unbelievable considering he's only been in office, well, as of Friday, 1 year, and he has a majority of over 160. And yet here we are facing a potential defeat in the House of Commons by his own MPs over a decision to shave about £5 billion off an enormous welfare bill. Now, I was on Downing Street earlier today for a press briefing with the Number 10 spokesman. as you'd expect, everyone was asking about what sort of concessions might be made and how this would be watered down. And again, as you'd expect, not much information given there. They said they didn't want to get ahead of Tuesday's vote. Nonetheless, we were also asking about who's to blame here and what's really going on behind the scenes, because there's a lot of briefing in the newspapers today that Morgan McSweeney, who's the Downing Street Chief of Staff, is getting the finger pointed at him quite a lot by MPs. And there's a senior leadership of Downing Street is in a bit of a bunker mentality. Now, asked whether the Prime Minister still has total confidence in Morgan McSweeney, the spokesman said they would never comment on members of Number 10 staff, and the PM remains fully focused on the job at hand. Now, that is interesting, because you might recall when Sue Gray was the Chief of Staff, they were much keener to suggest that they were backing her before, of course, she ultimately left anyway. So that, to me, is a significant dodging of a serious question there. And like I said, again, otherwise, in terms of what we can expect on Tuesday, we heard in the House of Commons, the Prime Minister say that he's having ongoing conversations with these rebels, and so you can therefore expect that, although we don't know the specifics, this bill will be watered down significantly. Finally, just one other point before I leave you: the third reading and the committee stage of this bill, which of course happens after the vote in theory passes on Tuesday. That's all being condensed into one day on Wednesday. So the level of scrutiny these MPs are going to get for this bill, and what they would clearly expect given the rebellion already, is very, very small.
That is absolutely extraordinary. Well, Adam Cherry, thanks indeed for bringing us all of that live from Westminster. I mean, Emily, this is it's such a strange thing to have happened. Tony Blair never had this when he won with a big majority, or even Margaret Thatcher in her first term. She got in with not the biggest majority in the world. She was down in the polls for quite a way for her first couple of years, but never had this sort of lack of authority that Keir Starmer seems to have. It seems like his ability to govern has utterly vanished.
And it's easy to see why. I mean, of course, there is a narrative amongst the left of the party, at least, that Keir Starmer is taking the party dangerously to the right with such changes to welfare. I'm not sure if that's really the case,
can we just
but it's certainly a perception that some of them have.
Can we spell out what these dastardly right-wing changes to welfare are? By 2030, the budget for disability benefits was going to rise by £13 billion. Now, the changes will mean it will only rise by £8 billion. So that is still £8 billion more rising on that disability benefits budget. And apparently that is evil austerity.
Yeah. Yeah, well, apparently so. And then there's also the case that a lot of these Labour MPs are starting to get a little bit anxious, let's say, about their seats, because you've got reform very much knocking at their door, and quite senior ministers as well, too, who are facing, well, a bit of a tricky time come the next election if the polling stays as it is.
Well, does that explain it, perhaps? The idea that if these MPs have been elected, I mean, if they really thought that they were in for 2 terms, 3 terms, well, then they'd want to be loyal, work their way up the ministerial ladder, ingratiate themselves with the Prime Minister. If they think they're only in for 4 years and they're going to be chucked out at the next election, they might as well behave a little bit more rebelliously. But I suppose the person to explain all of that for us is Catherine Forster. Catherine, what were we just looking on our screens? This is a new MRP mega poll from YouGov.
Yes, it is, and it is absolutely catastrophic for Labour and catastrophic for the Conservatives. So just looking at those numbers, this is an MRP poll by YouGov, 12,500 people. It's very sophisticated with the modelling. It puts Reform as the biggest party up 266 seats to 271, but still shy of a majority. But look at Labour. They've currently got 411. They'd be down to 178. The Lib Dems would be third on 81. But the Conservatives, who might have thought they'd hit rock bottom last summer, decimated for a second time, just down to 46 seats. So even if you put Reform and the Conservatives together, you still wouldn't get enough for a majority. You might be able to lean possibly on the DUP. Theresa May did that, didn't she? But look at Nigel Farage, and I think as you've just been saying right now about the welfare reforms, yes, many Labour MPs fundamentally believe that you shouldn't be hurting the most vulnerable in society. That's not why these new MPs came into power. But at the same time, they're also worried, aren't they, about losing their seats, because many of them didn't expect to win those seats. They got this incredible victory. And now, less than a year on, they're looking at the polls, they're looking at the popularity ratings of the Prime Minister, and they're seeing their seat being lost. So I think that's behind the rebellion too. But of course, this division, this very open division, that's one of the things that led to the Conservatives being booted out.
I mean, that is such a good point, Catherine. Does this remind you of those days in sort of late 2021, early 2022, when Boris Johnson was U-turning on every major decision? It seemed like his authority was utterly sapped. Despite his large majority in the House of Commons, it felt like a hung parliament. I mean, we're back there again, aren't we?
It does feel like it. And at the press conference in The Hague with the PM yesterday, I was going to say to him, basically, do you feel your authority is draining away? Somebody else asked that question. So I then said, how confident are you that you're still going to be around after the next election to implement all these defence plans and even lead your party into the next election? Well, he said he was very confident, but there are quite a number of people who are not convinced that Sir Keir Starmer is the right leader. And looking at the polls, OK, we're 4 years off, but at the moment, it doesn't seem
And they're making their voices known, aren't they? Catherine, we'll have to leave it there. But Catherine Forster, our political correspondent, thank you very much for now, because in other news, yes, the US president hailed the daddy at the NATO summit in wake of the attack on Iran. Let's take a listen.
I just want to get your attention. I really want to be all up in your head. Yeah. Is it you say daddy's home for me? I know you've been waiting for this love.
To be clear, this is a video that was posted to the official White House social media streams with the words "Daddy's Home" superimposed upon it. This is a song by Usher, but my goodness me, shall we try and make some sense of this with the retired Royal Navy officer, Rear Admiral Chris Parry. Chris, I mean, Trump is basking in what happened over the last couple of days in the Netherlands.
Well, who says the Americans can't do irony? I think it comes from Mark Rutte, obviously saying that, you know, President Trump was treating Iran and Israel like two spoilt children, and actually used the expression daddy. I think he meant in the sense of the big daddy, as you and I would understand it. And of course, they've picked it up in the United States. I think it's charming, to tell you the truth. President Trump is throwing his weight around. There's no question about that. He's being the absolute essence of patriarchy, and I think it's highly appropriate.
OK, well, Chris, also very interested to get your take on what we just saw, the press conference with Pete Hegseth, the US Defence Secretary and the Air Force Chief there. Essentially, Pete Hegseth saying that the media almost wanted the strike to fail, that they've been releasing very biased leaks of intelligence reports because they hate Trump.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. They don't want any success to go. I mean, a couple of things, aren't there? Everybody was saying, except for President Trump, don't do it, don't do it. It'll stir a hornet's nest, all that sort of thing. And the last thing you want to see if you're a naysayer is somebody being successful in spite of all the risks. President Trump took the risk. It seems to have been successful for now. We've yet to see whether there's going to be lasting peace as a result of the ceasefire, but at least the killing has stopped.
Yeah, because Chris Parry, we heard from Pete Hegseth there that the UN, CIA, Israeli officials have all said a huge amount of damage has been done to the Iranians' capacity to make a nuclear bomb, essentially. Of course, that leaked intelligence report that was all over the US media and the global media said that it only set it back a few years. I mean, how do we know exactly what actually happened?
Well, if you look at the damage on what is publicly available, there's a large number of holes in the various mountains associated with Fordo and the Natanz, which would indicate there's been a very powerful underground explosion. I think the real fact of the matter is that the way the Iranians have reacted, they've run for cover. They clearly don't have access to fissile material they can use immediately. What is really interesting, though, Emily, is that people are saying you've only delayed the nuclear program by a few months or a few years. And these are the same people who are saying there was no nuclear program in the first place. So it's quite extraordinary. It's actually confirmed in many ways that there is one. The fact of life is you don't enrich uranium above about 5% unless you want to use it for weapons grade uranium. It's as simple as that. They're up at 60%, maybe even 90%. So there was a program. We hope all the fissile material has been dealt with. Otherwise, the Iranians will be back on track to try and get a nuclear device at some stage in the near future. Also, the fact of life is you can use fissile material from their reactor at Bushehr on the Gulf if you really want to do that. So I think we have to be very vigilant about whether Iran is going to develop a dirty bomb, for example, or indeed one or two devices of what they've got.
And that is perhaps one of the risks of the American press conference that we just saw, where they're saying, everything's done, weren't we brilliant, everything's absolutely fine. If they take their eye off the ball now, the Iranians could do something potentially more dangerous. But we're going to have to leave it there. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, thanks indeed for talking us through that indeed developing situation.
Very interesting indeed. Well, it is that time of the day where we offer you the opportunity to enter the Great British Giveaway for £54,321. It is our biggest cash prize to date, and it's tax-free, of course. Here's Hayley Sparks to tell you how to do it.
This is your chance to enjoy luxury this summer. It's our biggest cash prize to date, an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash has to be won. What would you do with that? With all of that cash, you could just chill out, treat yourself and indulge in the finer things in life, somewhere like here, Downhall Hotel and Spa. You really could win the cash giveaway of the summer. Go on, treat yourself.
For another chance to win £54,321 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. There's plenty more coming on today's programme.
There is. The Prince and Princess of Wales, well, they've come under fire from animal rights activists because they shared birthday snaps with their Cocker Spaniel and her pups. Should the royals be setting a different example during a so-called pet homelessness crisis? Is it selfish to breed your own pups?
Well, was it drugs that drove the Hainault killer into a violent rampage? As reports emerge of a heavy cocktail of cannabis and hallucinogenics, were the warning signs missed?
Five hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me. You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Good Afternoon Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Of April, right in between GB Team Selection Series, which hurt even more because I was leading in the points. But all of a sudden, I get a phone call being told you're banned from attending any Pal UK premises. banned from speaking with your teammates or staff, which was the most brutal part of it, and suspended, or whatever word you want to use.
I think, though, Kurt, that, posting subscription-only saucy content online might get you in a little bit of trouble, or did it not cross your mind?
No, for sure. But I want to make it clear that I have tried things in the past. I've been living life on the edge so many years. We moved from Latvia in 2010, been living life on the edge since then, done everything from working freelance long into the long nights, working at the Amazon warehouse. I have seeked out other alternatives. But in December last year, I got to a point, a realization where I thought, is it worth it? Or can I find an alternative? And I knew of other GB athletes doing it. I didn't think it was going to cause outrage like this.
Yeah, because I was thinking, a nice chap like you, who's obviously very talented with your sport, you could make some money doing, like online fitness training or personal training and things like that don't involve, getting your kit off.
No, for sure. I've been making content for like 6-7 years now. Over 1,000 of the pieces of content have been inspirational, motivational. I've visited over 30 schools in the UK, going to the hardest parts of the UK, inspiring kids from underprivileged backgrounds to get into sport. I've tried that, but I don't know. I found that in this day and age, unless you are smart or find some little controversial thing you can hold on to, it's going to be hard to get attention and sponsorship.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 26 minutes past 2. Now, earlier the Prime Minister gave a statement on, of course, that NATO summit that took place over the previous couple of days. But did you know something? The benches behind him looked a little sparse.
A little sparse?
And according to our next guest, Labour MPs had a text from the whips telling them to turn up and support the Prime Minister.
Should we speak to that guest? It's Kevin Schofield, the political editor of HuffPost UK. Kevin, leaking text messages that show that the Prime Minister very desperate for people to even turn up, his own MPs.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've got to say, it's not that unusual for MPs to be cajoled, to go along to support the Prime Minister. But what was really noticeable about this was the first text that MPs got said that they were encouraged to go along to support the Prime Minister while he was making his statement on the G7 and NATO summits. And then shortly afterwards, when that request fell on deaf ears, the next one said, you must go along to support the Prime Minister. So quite clearly they were very concerned that the first text message was a little bit too nice. So they followed it up with a second one insisting. But then when you looked actually at the benches behind them, they were pretty sparse. When you consider that Labour have got over 400 MPs, they should be packed out, really, for a statement of this magnitude. It's the first time the Prime Minister has been to Parliament in a little while. You would think they'd be wanting to hear what he had to say. Very important discussions taking place at both the G7 and NATO, and yet they were struggling to get MPs to come along, and I don't think that augurs very well for the Prime Minister.
They're all scheming, aren't they? They're all busy scheming about this welfare bill.
Well, there's a fair chance, yeah. There's certainly a lot of conversations going on. I can tell you that for an absolute fact, not least now that the Prime Minister has said that he personally will be involved. As I say, he's been out the country for the start of the week. Now that he's back, he'll be hitting the phones, he'll be inviting rebels into Number 10, into his Commons office to try and twist arms, cajole them into supporting the government next Tuesday. But it's by no means guaranteed that these concessions which are being offered will actually work. And if they do go ahead with the vote, then they could well be taking a very big gamble.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of those backbench members of Parliament that aren't too pleased with the Prime Minister might well say, come on then, see you next Tuesday. But I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, Kevin Schofield. Thanks indeed for joining us. And what a time for a Prime Minister who allegedly has a large majority.
Like the headmaster telling you have to be in Assembly now. Anyway, in other news, animal rights activists have criticised the Prince and Princess of Wales. They say they are staggeringly out of touch for breeding their own Cocker Spaniels, arguing it's irresponsible while shelters are overflowing with dogs in need.
Well, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals group, the Americans pronounce it PETA, but I never know how to pronounce it. PETA? I mean, who knows? Well, it said that no one should be churning out litters when there is a nationwide dog overpopulation crisis.
Well, joining us now is Associate Director of PETA, Jennifer White. Jennifer, thank you very much for joining us. Bit mean, isn't it?
Thank you for having me. The reality is that animal shelters in the UK and elsewhere are bursting at the seams with homeless animals. And, you know, we've seen that they have decided to breed, you know, their puppy and bring more animals into a world where there are already so many homeless dogs. And instead, they could have followed the lead of King Charles and Camilla, who have just set such a great example by adopting from a rescue shelter. And that's why we have to take this opportunity to remind everyone to always adopt, never buy from breeders.
Hang on, Jennifer, by that logic, you'd say people shouldn't be having any children until all the children that are in care are adopted.
Well, we're here to talk about dogs, and the reality is that every time a new puppy is born, a dog in a rescue shelter loses their chance at finding their forever home. And if you talk to anyone who works at a rescue shelter, they will tell you that they are bursting at the seams. And that's why thousands of dogs are euthanized in the UK every single year for lack of a good home. And that's why we have to take this opportunity to encourage people to adopt and to always have their animal companions spayed or neutered.
Of course, it's lovely advice, and for those that can adopt a dog, absolutely the most wonderful thing to do, of course. But for some families, that isn't an option. For some families, they want to have a dog from birth, grow up with their children, grow up with the family. That is such a unique and special experience. But also, of course, genetics matter, traits matter in dogs. If you have a dog from a certain litter, you largely know how that dog will behave. Surely that's incredibly important.
There are so many puppies as well as older dogs who are desperate for their forever home. And, you know, bringing up breeds and pedigree and all of that nonsense, you know, that is a man-made breed. You know, if it was up to dogs, they don't care who they would mate with, and we would end up with just lots of happy, healthy mutts. And the problem by perpetuating certain breed types, you know, like pugs, for example, who are now bred with faces so flat that they can't breathe properly, or Cavalier King Charles Spaniels whose brains are now too big for their skulls. You know, that is where selective breeding has got us, and it is also exacerbating this animal overpopulation crisis that we're in as well.
Am I immoral for having a cockapoo?
Well, I would certainly encourage you to adopt a dog next time. That is the whole point of this conversation. There are thousands of dogs languishing in shelters, being euthanized every single year because people are choosing to buy from breeders. And we know that breeders churn out litter after litter of dog, usually based on, you know, the one that's done best at crofts or the one that's most popular on social media. And that is resulting in millions of dogs worldwide dying for lack of a good home.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to say about how people should take responsibility for their pets so they don't end up in a home. You know, people buying them over the pandemic and then thinking, actually, this doesn't fit into my normal life, or buying one for Christmas, or then the kids don't actually like the dog that much. I mean, that's one way of looking at it. So I'd agree on that front. Jennifer White, thank you very much. You're from PETA, the People...
The Ethical Treatment of Animals.
Thank you very much. Fantastic stuff.
Well,
there you go.
Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's programme.
Was it drugs that drove the Hainault killer into a violent rampage? Reports emerge of a heavy cocktail of cannabis and hallucinogenics. What were the warning signs that were missed?
But first, it's your latest news update with Lewis Mackenzie.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB newsroom. More lethal than ever. That's the Prime Minister's description of the NATO military alliance as he highlighted the UK's commitment to strengthening our nuclear deterrent.
It has kept this country safe for decades. But we recognise the grim reality today that the nuclear...
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is prepared to back down on the welfare cuts bill in the attempt to head off a rebellion by Labour MPs. Meanwhile, YouGov's new in-depth poll suggests Reform UK is on track to get the most seats if a general election took place this year. A double-decker bus carrying sixth form college students has crashed off a road and ended up in a river, leaving 3 people being taken to hospital with 14 others treated at the scene. Those are your latest headlines. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hi there, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got some showers moving east through this morning, and there'll still be some showers around through the afternoon, but they will tend to ease, opening the way for plenty of sunny spells. But with a fresher westerly airflow, it's going to feel a bit fresh over the next couple of days before the heat builds again over the weekend and early next week. Now, the showers I mentioned, the bulk of them are out of the way by lunchtime, but still some dotted about across eastern parts of England, into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, interspersed by brighter spells, and indeed there will be plenty of sunshine across the Midlands, west of England as well as Wales. Temperatures responding well, still up to the mid-20s in places, but certainly a fresher feel compared with the humidity that we've had across the south, at least over the last couple of days. Now, for Scotland and Northern Ireland, we'll still see some heavy showers during the evening, but as I say, there will be some dry and brighter interludes, some decent sunshine there for the Western Isles. Northern Ireland, the showers tending to ease, but cloudier here compared with the rest of the UK. Plenty of sunshine as we go into the evening for the southern half of the country. England and Wales seeing long spells of bright weather as the sun goes down. And we're going to keep the clear skies across parts of eastern UK into the rest of the evening, but further west, cloud thickens, outbreaks of rain arrive, the breeze picks up as well as an Atlantic frontal system moves in. So with that cloud rolling in, it's not going to be a cool night. Temperatures in many places staying in the mid-teens, but it will be a damp start to the day across much of Scotland into northwest England, Northern Ireland. A lot of cloud here, a keen breeze as well, picking up strength through the day. But further south, further the Midlands, parts of Wales and the south of England, there'll be variable amounts of cloud here and there, but mostly dry, and it's going to start to feel a little warmer again, up to 27 or 28 Celsius.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 eastbound at Junction 6 remains closed for roadworks with signed diversions. The A240 southbound from Upper Boat to Nantgarw is closed overnight from 8. In Thurrock, expect traffic due to a collision on the M25 clockwise between junctions 29 and 30, causing delays. The A2 eastbound entry slip from the A226 in Kent is blocked by a broken down vehicle, prompting lane closures. And on the trains, there is major disruption on the Avanti West Coast in the Milton Keynes central area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 38 minutes past 2. Now, Marcus Monzo has been found guilty of murdering 14-year-old Daniel Anjorin during a samurai sword rampage in northeast London.
Yeah, this was the most shocking case. And now it's been revealed he sought enlightenment with psychedelic drugs and was in a cannabis-induced psychosis during the attack. Well, should we speak to Peter Bexley, former Scotland Yard detective, on this? Because some of the details of this case are truly, truly shocking.
Yes, they are. Tuesday the 30th of April last year was a bright, clear and crisp morning, and the residents of Lang Close in Hainault in northwest London were going about their business, going to work, returning after a night shift, getting ready and going off to school. Unfortunately, Marcus Monzo, who's now 37 and has spent years scrambling his head with LSD, a huge cannabis habit, psychedelics, psychedelic teas, LSD. He's travelled the world to fall under the clutches of an Indian guru with complete lunatic kind of theories that he's adhered to, one of which was you could survive without eating, for example, OK? These are the kind of cults and the kind of behaviour that he's fallen into. His head was scrambled through his own irresponsible use of drugs for years. That morning, the 30th of April, he set out in his van because he set himself up as a man with van type person. That was how he tried to scratch a living if he wasn't pulling pints in a pub. All of which was to fund his travel around the world, by the way, to take more drugs, to be a part of more lunatic cults. That was his lifestyle. This morning, he set out with murderous intent. He'd previously skinned his own cat and prepared it to go in the oven at home. He was going to eat it, pardon those details, but he thought his cat was going to be part of Armageddon, so he had to kill it and eat it. This is how bonkers, or as my dad would have said, how off his rocker this man was. So he drives into Lang Close, and forgive me for just pulling up the name because it's really important that I give the victims, those who were injured by him, the due courtesy of mentioning their names. Donato Iwule was a security guard. He's walking in Lang Close when Monzo drives his van so fast into Donato, clearly with the intention of trying to kill him, that he then goes on and hits the wall of a house. So people hear this noise and wake up. Donato is catapulted into a garden. Monzo gets out with the sword, stands over him and says, "Do you believe in God?" and starts hacking away at Donato. Donato, remarkably, was able to roll over, and he saw, Donato's a hero here, he saw Daniel Angerin coming out of his house, this 14-year-old precious, beautiful boy, and Donato shouted at him to get back in his house. But of course, the young man, like so many children today, had his headphones on. Murderous Monzo then went and virtually decapitated that 14-year-old child, killing him, of course. Ambulances were called, the police were called. It didn't take long for officers to turn up on scene. And two heroic police officers, PC King and PC Meckham Whitfield, gave chase. They didn't have tasers, they used pepper spray, they tried to corner and arrest this man. And unfortunately, PC Meckham Whitfield was very, very seriously injured, life-threatening and life-changing injuries, as, of course, Monzo is trying to escape. PC King, heroically, he's giving a commentary. He's calling other officers down to the scene. He's trying to save his colleague's life. Whilst doing all of that, Monzo runs into a house where there's a couple in bed and their 4-year-old child in another room. Monzo runs to the bedroom. Once again, "Do you believe in God?" And Henry de los Rios Polania, who was in bed, heroically puts his arm up to protect himself and his partner, and he suffers a huge catastrophic injury to his arm. Monzo, this lunatic, runs away from that house. So now he's murdered one person, seriously injured two. He's not done yet. Officers, again, more officers are coming to the scene. He's been pepper sprayed by others. They try and corner him. And Inspector Campbell heroically tries to take him down, but suffers a major arterial wound. Once again, Monzo, with the sword, trying to kill the police inspector. That inspector was so badly injured that a tourniquet had to be applied to save his life. Wow. Eventually, Monzo was cornered. Officers with taser were on the scene. He was tasered and taken down. And so ended his murderous and bloody rampage.
Oh, my goodness, something out of a horror film, isn't it? Absolutely extraordinary. And did the defence try to use his drug use as a defence, as a mitigating factor?
He actually gave evidence and tried to pathetically claim that he was in the grip of some kind of episode, and therefore he wasn't responsible. But the jury saw through all of that, with the assistance, of course, of a brilliantly presented prosecution. And this was one of those cases where it was put forward that Monzo could have stopped his drug taking and got rehabilitated at any time he chose. Therefore, the rampage was all entirely his responsibility, and he is guilty of murder, attempted murder, and wounding with intent.
Yeah, he was seeking out these mind-altering states, this pre-Enlightenment voodoo nonsense. And then this rampage where he was trying to almost get confessions out of people, force people into some prehistoric belief system. I mean, it doesn't bear thinking
Gosh, I
about.
hope they
Peter,
sentence him harshly.
thank you so much for bringing us in such detail exactly what happened there. That was an absolutely gripping account. Thank you indeed for bringing it to us.
Thank you, Peter. Hope they throw away the key, don't you? We'll see what happens on that front. But yes, we will take you to the forecast for Europe.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. Lots of hot and sunny weather around the Mediterranean at the moment. Temperatures rising again in Spain. Quite a brisk breeze blowing at times over the Canaries. Some fine sunny weather here, a bit breezy too along the Portuguese coast, but a lot of sunshine across much of Iberia, through Italy and across the Greek islands as well. It'll turn a little cooler across the eastern Med as we head into the weekend, but temperatures continuing to rise in Spain and Portugal on Saturday and Sunday.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News, and up next, we'll talk to a member of Greenpeace who's been protesting against the wedding of Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez in Venice.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Just coming up to 10 to 3 and some breaking news just coming into us. Another dramatic stunt has unfolded in protest of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos's extravagant multi-million-pound wedding in Venice.
This time, a life-size mannequin of Bezos there posed as if he's sitting on a toilet, brazenly placed in the central square.
Well, the wedding has already been forced to change one of the venues in the celebrations because of protests and rising global tensions.
And Bezos and his wife have been accused of taking over the city by locals for the planned 3 days of festivities.
Well, joining us now is one of the Greenpeace organisers behind those protests in Venice, Isadora Wronski, and Italian journalist Elena Trabottoni. Well, Isadora, let's start with you. Why not? Why not a wedding for a rich man in Venice? I mean, is this not a free society?
Well, we're not against the wedding. Bezos is a clear example of a structural problem in our global economy, where the richest people on the planet owns the richest 1% owns more than 95% of humanity's wealth. And this is a problem that's undermining democracy, economic stability, constraining ability of governments to invest in social and environmental needs. So what we want here is justice.
OK, so this is just left-wing activism.
No, well, Greenpeace is an politically independent organization, so it's not left-wing or right-wing. It's if we should have any chance to stay within planetary boundaries, we need to address this skyrocketing inequality that's becoming an increasing...
Would right-wingers be allowed in Greenpeace? If you're a Conservative, would you be welcome?
Yes, of course. We are politically we're not bound to any political party at all.
So sorry, I'm just trying to understand what's the link between inequality and climate. I mean, surely it doesn't matter to the climate whether or not some people have more money than other people.
Well, at the moment, we have enough money in the world to solve all the multiple crises that the world is faced with, but that's not what governments are saying. We have a situation where the money's sitting in the wrong hands. So while people are struggling to pay household bills, put food on the table, or are increasingly facing the suffering of the consequences of climate catastrophes, that we have a global tax system that systematically favors the wealthiest individuals and polluting corporations.
Okay. Isadora, thank you. Let's go to Elena Trabottoni, who's there in Venice. You've got a beautiful backdrop, haven't you, Elena? So tell us, what is going on in Venice? How much of the city is this the wedding taking over? And have you seen the stunts?
I've seen the stunts, and I mean, the city's also going ahead with its ordinary, life in terms of tourism and activities and everything. You can see behind me a super yacht of reportedly one of the guests by St. Mark's turret, where a lot of the protests have been going on. And to be fair, the actual wedding itself isn't contributing to over-tourism too much, because it's just 200 guests, and by any standards, especially Italian wedding standards, 200 is a very small number of guests. But I think a lot of people are taking advantage of the symbolism tied to this event to voice their grievances about growing inequality, about multinationals being located and relocated in jurisdictions which are more fiscally attractive and to the detriment of some of the countries they're operational in. And also primarily the fact that Bezos is a multi-billionaire, and a lot of people are not, and inequality is growing.
Yeah, it's very in your face, isn't it? The inequality there. It's very in your face. I can understand that. Elena Trabottoni, thank you so much, and also to Isadora Wronski. Have a wonderful afternoon. That's it from us, isn't it?
It certainly is. But Martin Daubney's up next. Stick around.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome along to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Showers easing during the rest of today, and then a period of time where skies clear before cloud and rain return, especially across northern and western parts of the country overnight.
Now, we've had a number of features move through during the course of the day, bringing some showers, but brighter skies have followed, and we'll see some evening sunshine, certainly across the southern half of the UK. But further north, yeah, some sunshine at first, but soon enough, overnight, we'll see the cloud thicken across most parts, really, and outbreaks of rain moving through. Even the south could see some rain for a time, but by the end of the night, the rain is focused across western Scotland, northwest England, Northern Ireland, and with the cloud and the breeze picking up, temperatures staying at 12 to 14 Celsius typically. But there will be some early morning sunshine across southern parts of England into the Midlands and East Anglia. However, for Scotland, it is a dreary start to the day. A lot of clouds, some low cloud covering the hills and coasts to the west, and outbreaks of persistent rain over western hills. I think drier towards the east and northeast, but largely cloudy. Northern Ireland, likewise, a lot of cloud. Northwest England seeing the damp weather set in firmly during the morning. North Wales similar, but further south across Wales, brighter skies and mostly dry. 1 or 2 spots of rain possible for the southwest of England, but really it's a north-south split by the afternoon, with sunny spells breaking through across southern parts of the UK, albeit with 1 or 2 light showers here and there. Variable amounts of cloud, but thicker cloud and increasingly heavy rain pushing into northwestern parts of the UK, particularly for higher parts of western Scotland. Temperatures here held back as a result, but a warm day in the south, with temperatures reaching the mid or even high 20s in places. Then on Friday night, it's a warm night for many of us, with a lot of cloud cover, continuing to rain in western Scotland. High pressure then builds in from the south during the weekend, bringing increasingly hot air to the south while it stays cooler further north.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're kick-starting summer with your chance to win our biggest cash prize to date, as there's an incredible £54,321 in tax-free cash to be won. What would you spend it on? A brand new car, the holiday of a lifetime, or just sit back, relax and remove some of those day-to-day financial stresses? For another chance to win, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB14 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Where Anna Riley, our intrepid reporter, is doing the toughest job in television right now, which is enjoying the sunshine. Anna.
Yes, Tom, it's definitely a tough gig for me today, I'll tell you. I'm on the Bridlington Fun Park ride here. This is the zero gravity ride. This fun park is, off we go. This fun park is right next to the sea. Oh, it goes quite quickly, I'll tell you. And people are out enjoying rides like this one. Off we go. It's a great boost for tourism, and we've been speaking to people here in Bridlington about what's so great about the sunshine. Let's have a listen.
We're on holiday. We've been here since last Friday, so we can't complain. It's been beautiful, and we're here till Monday, so we're really looking forward to the hot weather. As you can see, the sunburn.
It's lovely. It really is very nice. It's absolutely gorgeous. We deserve it, definitely.
It's good. We like the warm weather.
Yes, very nice. Loving it. Yes, like the warm
enough.
weather.
Woo! Well, this ride is showing no signs of stopping, and neither is the sunshine. We're getting that heat wave at the weekend. Enjoy the weather and enjoy fun rides like this one. Get to Bridlington and get to the fun park. Woo!
Oh my gosh! Absolute bravo, Anna Riley. What an incredible piece of television. I hope they let you off at some point.
I thought they'd only do it once or twice. Bless her.
GB News, the People's Channel.
GB News to win at the Trick Awards for the 3rd year in a row.
So thank you so much for voting for us.
First, and hopefully there'll be a few more to come down the line.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
It's because of you that we're proud to be the People's Channel. It's because of you that we are Britain's news channel.
A very, very good afternoon to you, and congratulations to all those Trick Award winners there at GB News Breakfast and Charlie Peters. But for today, it's 3 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News. We're broadcasting for you live from the heart of Westminster and all across the UK. On today's show, faced with a rebellion that could have triggered a general election, Keir Starmer is being forced into yet another humiliating U-turn. Last time it was over winter fuel allowance. This time it's benefits cuts. Now, with billions being splurged and every single cut being resisted, is Britain set to go bust under the Labour Party? And a bombshell poll shows a huge 81% of all British voters supports the deportation of serious foreign criminals such as paedophiles and rapists, even if that means they risk torture. Does this prove once and for all that our woke establishment and our parliamentarians are completely out of touch with reality and the electorate? And 2 mega polls in 2 days have both showed that Nigel Farage is now on track to become Britain's next Prime Minister, with both the Labour Party and the Tories seeing their vote utterly collapse. And also on today's show, I'll be joined in the studio by a Westminster Tory councillor who's defected to Reform. And she quit the Conservatives because, quote, she is tired of defending failure. And that's all coming up in your next hour.